Hello and welcome back to Build Propulsion Lab at JCON Europe, brought to you live from Cologne, Germany. And my next guest is Elias Nogueira. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. You mentioned a very interesting topic that immediately sparked my interest, and then managing test data.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about that. First of all, test data, I would say, it's an interesting topic because it might be very helpful when we can manage to use production or very similar to production data, but it might also give us completely false results for our tests when the data is not representative. That's the word that I was looking for. Representative. And I would say there are scenarios in which it's very easy to get representative data, but there are those in which it's not that easy.
Yeah.
So
one of the things I'm always talking, it's more or less the same like the terminology plus the data requirements. One of the mandatory things, like probably all the developers manage test data because we need those for the unit test, for try to simulate the simulation in production or anything else like this. But understanding the data requirements, what data should be there, is the most important thing actually when we are managing or generating data. One of the examples I give, like if we do have like any kind of object or entity that has an age, and the age is 1 year old. Is it correct? Is it not correct? So I need to understand first all those data requirements fully. Then I can start, okay, let's create a data depending on the approach we want, of course.
So there are a couple of things about data requirements. Some of them are formalized.
Yeah.
For example, we are doing an application for dating, and then age of 1 is, we can put in contract that age of 1 is not valid. Right, but and then it's easier because then we can look and say, okay, we understand the requirements. Some of those requirements are just observed results. In our application, turns out we don't have anything strict against users 1 year old, but it just doesn't happen. And when it comes to testing data, yes, we might want to test against something that was 1 year old, but it doesn't make sense because it's actually never happened.
It can happen. You are totally right. It might not happen most of the cases, but when we need to just make sure in terms of testing in general, we need to take care about the edge cases. Let's say in a dating app, probably 1 year old doesn't. Of course, we cannot have that there, but we should test this scenario.
That's correct, we should. But the majority of data, if we're going to synthesize data which represents our production data, if we don't weight the probability of this data appearance in our systems, our test will probably be valid, but they won't be useful.
They won't bring value, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's one of the important things as well. There's a lot of important things, but the observability part of it. See the production data and see how it's behaving with the users, which data we have there, so they can shape better the usage in the testing part of try to solve an issue. Looking at the big picture of data and try to see like few correlations. Okay, what is the average age, etc. So maybe it's interesting for some kind of tests we are doing. Any kind of test actually, not only let's say technically focused like unit test, integration test, but for business as well. Because this is
exactly. I think that's what we kind of, the data should not only be valid from technical point of view, it should also make sense from business point of view.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right, so we established all that, and that's a great start. The next question is, how do we do it?
There's several ways to do it, of course, yeah. One of the ways I normally talk and teach, technical one, it's with a combination, actually. We need to create data. I normally talk about three problems. Generating data without a meaning, it's useless, because when you're trying to see an issue or you try to see it from the business requirements, it doesn't make sense at all. And not even like we cannot even understand the data, so it's a no-go. Second is data requirements, we're already talking about. And the third one is when we have data, but you are adding like kind of fixed data. All the time the same data with the same meaning. Even based on the business requirements, we aren't in the same thing all the time. It's
Of course, of course, because you don't really test all the varieties that can happen. Of course.
And what I normally tell Java developers to do is to try to combine three approaches. One is to create a simple, silly model object that has a builder pattern on it, like a normal builder, just to hold the data we need to use. Second, create a factory class to generate different kind of data. So we have like methods or classes, okay, creates this in this condition, that in that condition, etc. But we need to solve one thing. There's one missing connection point here. We have the way to create data. We can add data there, but we need a tool to create this kind of data, to auto-generate this based on all the business rules we have.
Yes. So what do we do then?
There's several different libraries. One of them I like that most, open source one, really good one, is called the Data Faker. So it's a real fake data. So it's nothing like
real fake data. I love the term, real fake data.
Why I will get there at this point. You will try to search, okay, maybe some names you match with someone that existing, but most of the data that doesn't exist. So it's good. It's still valid, but doesn't exist. And you can shape through the library any way of data you want to have, or if you want to extend or have different data, you can create your own. Why I'm saying like real, like fake data in this sense? Because normally a lot of people has this idea that sometimes it's valid, sometimes it's not, to get the data from the production database.
That's a questionable practice. That's a questionable practice for multiple points of view. First, GDPR.
Exactly.
You cannot do that.
Yeah.
And the second is security stuff like credit cards.
Yes.
Passwords are hashed, but still, like usernames, emails, all this stuff you cannot use for your tests. You just can't.
Yeah. That's why normally what we are saying nowadays, we don't get data from production environments. If we need to have a company policy for that, with all the transformations and everything. That's why that kind of libraries are really beneficial, because you can even like do testing in production with fake data that won't affect anyone.
Right, of course. And you mentioned there are a couple of ways to do that. The first is transformation, which will basically say, okay, mutate the data in some predictable way, so it will be still representative, but not the real one, which is one way to do it. But I would guess it's not perfect, because when you mutate the data in predictable ways, you actually bias your tests in a certain way, and they are not representative anymore.
Yeah. That's why still like doing this with libraries are better than try to extract something from production and try to apply in the tests.
Yeah, but this is obviously true, but then when you do it with libraries, you actually, again, might not have the representative data that represents your data.
That's why, like, let's try to connect with the previous, what we were discussing previously. We need to understand the data that we have in production, to plot it, to really understand and plot it, so we can use the tools to generate it for us. Of course, it won't be perfect at the beginning, but we can say, okay, I'm missing some part of data. This tool is generating data for me. It's perfect, but we are missing some requirements and things like this.
And maybe not even formalized, as we spoke about.
Yeah, and we can like understand all the data from production environment, and then we can, okay, from the business perspective, this makes more sense than we are doing right now. Or maybe the tool is not supporting this kind of thing, so I can extend or can do another different way.
So, hear me out. How about using AI and machine learning?
It's perfect as well. Yeah.
Because I would say this is, for my limited understanding, this is the perfect way to get win-win-win. your teach your models on your production data, and then it generates data which is identical for the purposes of your tests to your production environments, but it's representative 100%, but it's actually safe from GDPR and security standpoints.
But in another hand, like we are not 100% sure if we don't have an LLM that will really specialize on that. We are not 100% sure that the any AI nowadays won't give you kind of production data as well.
Well, yes, but
it's perfect.
Oh, okay. So
it's basically the next step for data generation is like using the power of AI and using like specific LLMs to understand about the data and to generate this more fine-grained like data.
And there are tools that exist today. Synthesized one of them. That this is what they do, right? They take your production data and they give you data which is ready for tests. And which brings me to another aspect, and that's the volume of data, right? And here again, it's a trade-off. Because if you have a lot of data in production, what will be a representative size
of
not the content, but the size of data that your tests from one side will represent kind of load that you have in production, and from the other side won't take forever to run just because there is too much. So how do we do that? What's the rule there?
Good question. I would say it's tricky for me right now to give an answer or give an idea. But what I would do actually in this approach, I would start collecting data from the tests to learning about it. Okay, how the tests are behaving, what is the metrics my testing is doing, it's failing or not failing, it's running for a full week without any problems, it's giving me the assertiveness that I want. Then I can like predict if this kind of like amount of
shameless plug. There is this elephant in the room, which is the elephant on the backdrop, which is Gradle, obviously, and Gradle's commercial offering, Gradle Velocity, can help with analyzing the data from tests. That's exactly what. One of the things that it does, it actually will let you see how the tests are performing in terms of the stability, but also performance. So you can start tweaking the amount of information that you feed into, whether from the generators or the synthetic tools like like Synthesized and others, and then find this golden path between, yes, we use all this data, but our tests are so slow that they don't make sense, comparing to, hey, we use a tiny fraction of data, it works perfectly in our test, but it actually fails in production just because we have so much more data. And obviously we want to be able to run different types of tests for a local environment in which we just want to get sense that we didn't break anything. And of course our CI/CD, which are asynchronous, we don't wait for them, we can let them run much longer and use much more data that it feels more like our production environments.
And different layers as well, right? Because we can like even balance this with layers. I'm doing unit integration is maybe one set of data. When I'm running a large amount of set of tests, maybe in the front end, maybe with the front end or real end-to-end scenarios, is another amount of data and different scenarios. And all those are important. Some people don't see this connection as well, but there's a hard connection between them, right? And this balance between data across the
Absolutely. Well, today we learned. Elias, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was very, very useful. And so the tools, let's just summarize the libraries that you mentioned.
The main one I'm using is called Data Faker.
Data Faker. Then we mentioned Synthesized, and we mentioned Gradle Velocity, of course. So check those out. They will help you using better data for your tests, and definitely don't use data from production. Instead use data which looks like production, feels like production, does the right thing, but keeps you safe from a very nasty lawsuits that you will get otherwise. All right, so with that, Elias, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you stay tuned for more interviews right after that at the Build Propulsion Lab at JCON Europe, or coming live from Cologne, Germany. Thank you. Bye-bye.